Spend just a few minutes showing you a new resource that's available through Accordance Bible software, and even the print edition of this Greek grammar is relatively new. It's an introduction to biblical Greek, elementary syntax and linguistics, and it's written by Dana M. Harris. So I've had just a little bit of time with this resource, not a whole lot, but I like what I see and wanted to share with you what it looks like in Accordance. Primarily, there are three parts here. There's the textbook itself, Intro to Biblical Greek. There's the accompanying workbook. And then there are some video lectures, which is particularly exciting. I think folks are probably more accustomed now to online interaction than 2-3 years ago. And so this is a great medium to use for learning along with this grammar. It really would make it possible for you to go through this on your own or just to gather your own group of folks rather than having to sign up for a class and do a class in person. So let me walk you through a couple different features here as it is in Accordance. I want to speak about the textbook a little bit. It's got this expanded table of contents. In Accordance, in any resource, the sidebar here that you can click open will show you the table of contents, and you can just browse your way through it as you would with any other resource and in any other apps. In Accordance, though, you can search your books by multiple search fields. So you could look up a word by Greek entry, by scripture reference, by vocabulary. You could even look it up by page number if you wanted to. But just to look a little bit at this resource itself before I show you how it's laid out in Accordance, there's a good section called Dear First Year Greek Instructors. And Professor Harris begins with the question that I think is worth asking, which is another introductory biblical Greek grammar. And she talks about why she wrote it in the classroom setting. She was supplementing first year grammars with her own handouts, and she talks about 25 years of teaching first year Greek. And so, long story short, it turned into this textbook that we've got, which also includes these video lectures. One unique feature about this particular textbook is that it introduces, as she says, verbs before nouns, since verbs are essential for understanding Greek. And I find this useful. Verbs are just more active. It feels like it's, I don't know, getting me into the text sooner, even though nouns do just the same thing. But I do appreciate that approach. I think it's fresh, and those who are teaching Greek may want to consider that. Another unique feature of this textbook is that it introduces the student to a unique kind of system of markup that she encourages students to use in the workbook as well, so that they can see the Greek syntax, so they can see how the words work together in forming a sentence. And Accordance has been confronted with the challenge in this, because basically you've got color coding in Accordance you can do, but you can't do things like double underline, box participles. Well, you can in Accordance, but I think it's more complicated. So what Accordance has done is they have written their own section, symbols used in the Accordance electronic edition, that basically approximates this markup system that Professor Harris has. I think Accordance has done a really nice job with this and very clever. So you've got, for example, Ha Kyrios to Cosmu, the Lord of the world. In the print book, it would look like this, and then you've got what's called the genitival modifier, which is explained in the grammar, and an arrow going from the word and the word that it modifies. In Accordance, it has reproduced the image as it is in the textbook, but it's also given you now what will be searchable text using Accordance's own system. And all of that is detailed here, and anytime you see an abbreviation, you can hover over it and find it in the instant details. So this is definitely worth reading through if you're using Accordance. You'll note here actually it says this is to accommodate mobile users. I think it just must be that some of these features are harder to carry over to mobile. But it works. And so that's all detailed here, as long as, in addition to, I should say, a key that explains all these different terms. So that raises the question, all right, well, how am I going to mark this up on my own in accordance? And I do think this is one advantage to learning Greek on pen and paper, or with pencil and paper would probably be more appropriate. And I may just be old-fashioned that way, and maybe because I learned that way. But there are some limitations with any electronic device, I suppose. Maybe the exception being a blank page in a notes app or something in an Apple Pencil where you can actually write and draw. That said, Accordance has sought to make this still doable for the users. And so you've got that system there that they've introduced. So in other words, you can't double underline something in Accordance, but you can change the color. The way to do this is in an Accordance user note. So you've got here, just to start with the answer, here's the answer to one of the exercises. Kyrios gnoske tous dialogismus ton saphon. The Lord knows the musings or the thoughts of the wise ones. And so in print, the answer that she's looking for, what Professor Harris wants you to do is to double underline gnosko, to single underline sophon, and to mark it up with this syntax notation here, which you cannot do this in Accordance, but you can change the colors, or you can make a little note here, as long as you remember that at the far right of an exercise is the plus button. So we could take, for example, Hatheas egere tous necrus. God raises or will raise the dead. And so we go to the plus button here in the margin. And what that's going to do is give me a user notes file. Now it expands, it goes beyond the scope of this video to talk about how to create user notes files. That's all very well documented under the help menu here. But I would just open up any user notes file for now. And what it's going to do is it's going to give me a blank screen, which will actually include here. You can make, actually I guess you can't make that font bigger from here, but it will include here the exercise, and then here I put my translation. And so I might put God raises, or maybe I'm a little fuzzy here on what's present indicative and what's future indicative, and so I put a question mark, the dead. You'll see here I actually didn't get that whole thing in the exercise, so I might even just go here and copy that exercise myself, that thing here, and put it there. Maybe put it in bold or something like that. All right, so now I can do what Professor Harris wants me to do, which is to double underline the finite verb, although, again, in the user notes, you cannot double underline. So you could just do your own thing and underline it, or you could do this burgundy color that Accordance has. And above each genitival modifier, write GM, draw an arrow. So again, you could just do the numbering system here instead. And then if you update this user note, you'll have a saved set of notes with your workbook exercises complete. So that's how Accordance makes use of the workbook. I've barely shown you anything in the grammar. It's pretty comprehensive for a first-year grammar. She even takes subjects that would be treated in third and fourth semester Greek, and she doesn't really go in depth on them, but she introduces them in a way that you don't have to sort of relearn something that was simplified in a way that you have to kind of undo your knowledge of it. And so she does a good job, I think, of balancing simplicity and complexity there. The video lectures are what are most interesting to me about this. And Accordance has done a really nice job, again, of linking all three resources together. So you could be, let's just start in the workbook. I'm at the beginning of chapter 4, and here's the workbook. Now I can go right to the video lecture for chapter 4, and I click here, and it takes me to the video lecture module. And now I can click on it, and there is the video. And then there's also a link back to the grammar. So the link between these three resources, from grammar to workbook and back into the videos, is pretty tight in Accordance. Let me just show you a snippet of a video so you can see what you're looking at. It's very, I mean, it's obviously professionally produced. It looks
and
great.
Language. Maybe that's why children usually grasp this first. As we've already seen, words, or parts of speech, can perform certain functions. We discussed this earlier in terms of slots,
All right, I'm just going to pause there. There's a lot of great stuff here, and it goes back and forth between you. You get the visual there, but you can also see here she's got essentially handouts, or I guess slides here, that really help to simplify it. And what I've seen of these video lectures, it just does a great job of distilling down what can be a lot of information into something bite-sized and manageable. If I have any critical feedback or suggestions here, it's that these videos in accordance open up in a we know not what browser app window. I mean, you can see here that even if I full screen this, it doesn't actually full screen. It's just a window within Accordance. You can see here my active app is Accordance. And so consequently, there's no way, I'm right-clicking here and getting nothing. There's not any way, like if you wanted to watch these videos at 1.5 speed or 0.5 speed, if you wanted to caption them, that's not available or possible as far as I know. So that's one drawback to the videos. However, there's a workaround. If you want to watch these videos at either a slower or faster rate, if you go to, this is getting a little more technical than I think maybe your average user would do, but if you go to your library in Accordance, which is in the Mac Finder window under Go, and then you have to hit Option. Notice here how Library is toggling on and off. That's because I'm hitting the Option key. So Apple, helpfully or maybe unhelpfully, depending on your opinion of this, has made the library harder to access. I guess they don't want users to mess stuff up. But if you hit Option, it takes you to the library. And then Application Support, Accordance, that opens up all the application support for Accordance. You get into your modules. This is a tool. And then that takes you to Harris Greek videos.a tool. Now, if you double click that, it will just take you right back to where we were before. But if you right click it, it will go to show package contents. Now, that's how Apple does it. That's, again, I think Apple should make it easier to access. But then you go to resources, and that's where Accordance houses the MP4 files of the video. So now, and you can see here, it's kind of a long location thread that actually gets me to these MP4 files. But now I can interact with them because they're in my Finder browser, so that means I can open them with another app like QuickTime Player. And in QuickTime Player, then you can actually set the speed. Closed captioning is still not available for these videos. That may be something to do with the publisher. I just don't know. But at least that way you can watch these videos at a different speed, which was one of the first things I was curious about. You may not need to do that anyway. I think the kind of primary use case is going to be someone.
That a transitive verb is a verb.
Is that somebody's watching the video and they're going to want to pause it and look at one of the slides, but I did find that to be something I wanted. Fortunately, there is that workaround. So there's a lot here to explore. I set out to do a short video, and so it's gotten a little longer than I intended, but and I want to thank Accordance for offering me a review copy of these so that I could review these and introduce them to folks. There was no expectation of anything I would say on my end. But yeah, there's a lot of great stuff here. I'll just close by pointing out the integration sections that she's got after chapters, let's see, she integrates chapters 1 through 7, 9 through 13, 15 through 19. And so this integration section is just a really good way to, kind of check in, almost like a midterm exam sort of. And so one thing that's clear about this grammar is that Professor Harris has been teaching students a lot and doing it well. It's very much geared toward the student in mind. And so even folks coming to Greek for the very first time and really wanting to go for it, I think will find this a good resource. She's very clear with objectives and overview at the beginning of the chapter, and then reviews it at the end. So it kind of follows that old adage of I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, and then I'll tell you, and then I'll tell you what I just told you. So there's lots of good reinforcement here. So you can find this in the Accordance store, of course, if you go to accordancebible.com, which I'm looking at from the in-app web browser. You could just product search your way to Harris, and you'll find these resources, which at the time of making this video, July 2022, they are currently on sale. You can purchase them as standalones. The videos are the most expensive of the group, but there's a lot there. I mean, that's far cheaper than auditing a class would be, and it gets you pretty close to that same level of media, if not actual interaction with the professor. So kudos to Accordance, and especially the creativity that they show in linking the resources together, and also kind of helping users figure out a way to mark up the syntax that just is harder to do either on a tablet or on a Mac. So again, you can go to accordancebible.com to find out more. Just keyword search Harris, and that will take you there. Thanks so much for watching, and feel free to leave any comments or questions in the comments below.